I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day going?
Pretty good. And what I'd like to do is just have a conversation to demonstrate some of your capability around this, and just have a meaningful conversation, potentially around self discovery and what can be done. And the idea where people can share, what they're thinking and feeling, and how your capability is actually to get behind the thoughts and the feelings, the emotions of our language, and show people that there are actual values that are sitting underneath. Do you mind if we try and do that?
That sounds like a fantastic idea. We can dive into the themes of self discovery and explore how language reflects our thoughts and emotions. To get us started, is there a particular experience or feeling you'd like to discuss? Or should we explore how emotions and values can guide our personal growth?
I think what I'm really keen to get to is the sense of how values are sitting underneath our thoughts and feelings for the day. So I don't know, let's just pick an example and let's say, okay, well, let's say I've had a really bad day at work, and I've had a conflict with my boss. I've had a complaining client. I haven't done the things that I've needed to do, on the day for work. I'm feeling pretty bad about myself. Um, Tell me about
That sounds like a tough day. When you're dealing with all those challenges, it can really weigh on you. If we look deeper into those feelings, frustration, disappointment, maybe even feeling overwhelmed, it can help us understand what values are important to you. For example, you might value achievement and recognition, and conflicts or setbacks can feel like they're undermining those values. On the other hand, if personal harmony and respect are important to you, conflict with your boss or a client might disrupt those values, causing distress. Does that resonate with how you felt? And would you say those values play a big role in your day to day life?
And they do. There's some truth in that. And what I'd like you to do next is, behind those types of feelings, what are the types of thoughts that may be upsetting me? So, can we just now talk about emotions, and then the types of thoughts that are typical in that situation that would cause me to feel upset?
Certainly, when you're upset after a tough day like you described, your thoughts can often spiral into self criticism or worry. You might think things like, I'm not good enough, or I always mess things up, which reflect a fear of inadequacy or failure. There might also be thoughts of uncertainty about the future, like, will my boss hold this against me? Or am I at risk of losing this client? These thoughts can amplify feelings of anxiety and disappointment. Such thoughts not only stir emotions, but also challenge your sense of competence and security, which are likely important to you. Recognizing these thought patterns can be a powerful step towards managing how they influence your feelings and reactions. Does this align with what goes through your mind in those situations?
It could be. Could you speak to some of the cognitive distortions in my thinking that would also contribute to maybe even feeling even worse on the day? So, play out some cognitive distortions that might be in my thinking, contributing to, these emotions if they got the better of me on a particular day.
Certainly, cognitive distortions can heavily influence how we perceive stressful situations, making us feel worse. Here are a few that might come into play on a tough day like you described. 1. Catastrophizing. You might start imagining the worst possible outcomes, like believing a single bad day could lead to losing your job or irreparably damaging your reputation. 2. Overgeneralization. This involves taking one event and applying it broadly, such as thinking, I can never do anything right because of a few setbacks. 3. Personalization. You might blame yourself entirely for negative outcomes, like a client complaint, even if many factors were involved that were out of your control. 4. All or nothing thinking. Seeing things in black and white, such as feeling like you're a complete failure if your performance isn't perfect. 5. Filtering. Focusing only on the negative details of the day and disregarding any positive aspects or successes, however small they might be. Identifying these distortions can help you challenge and reframe them, leading to a more balanced perspective. Do any of these sound like patterns you might fall into when you're having a rough day?
Yeah, I think it's quite powerful for to know. Could we go further, and could you get to the bottom of maybe? Let's talk about principles. Ray Dalio talks about principles. What's the type of principles that are in play for contributing for me to feel that way? What is the self belief, the assumptions that I'm making about myself, about others, and the world that I live in? And then suggest a better set of principles that I might be thinking about my day and the situation that I find myself in.
Exploring the principles or underlying beliefs that shape your reactions can be incredibly insightful. Often, the beliefs that contribute to feeling bad after a tough day might include assumptions like perfectionism, believing you must do everything perfectly, or it's a complete failure; control, assuming you must control all outcomes to be successful; approval, feeling you need constant approval from others, like your boss or clients, to validate your worth. These assumptions can set unrealistic standards and create a lot of internal pressure, leading to the negative feelings you experience. A more constructive set of principles to consider might include growth mindset, embracing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow rather than as threats to your ability; resilience, focusing on your ability to recover from setbacks rather than avoiding them altogether; self-compassion, treating yourself with kindness and understanding when things don't go as planned rather than harsh self-criticism. These principles can help shift your perspective to see a tough day as a chance to develop personal strengths rather than as a series of failures. Do these principles seem like they could help change how you approach difficult days?
Yeah, I think that's a great way of seeing things. What did occur to me as you were talking about that is I recently adopted a mental model because I think self worth. We self worth is something would be better seen like the sun that doesn't change; it's permanent, and clouds could be seen to the situations that you're in, and we tend to mistake that permanence into something that is so easily lost. So, for example, if something bad happens, and that could be a bad day, could be a bad situation.
That's a very powerful mental model you're using, comparing self-worth to the sun and daily challenges to clouds. It beautifully illustrates the idea that your inherent value is constant and unchanging, even when obscured by temporary problems or setbacks. By recognizing that these clouds or difficult situations don't define your worth, you can maintain a clearer perspective and emotional stability. This approach helps detach your sense of value from the ups and downs of daily circumstances, allowing you to respond to challenges with a steadier, more grounded attitude. It's a healthy way to remind yourself that while situations may vary, your fundamental worth remains intact. How has adopting this model influenced your feelings or actions on challenging days?
I've appreciated the mental model because it's not just words; it's something that could be. There's a spatial component to it and a permanence versus temporary component, whether things are just to describe, but to feel it, I think, in your gut, to something that you feel in your bones, I think it's a helpful. David Burns also talks about a beaker, or how we're born with, say, 100% worth, and things go up and down. It's not changed, and that's what you would believe for your kids. I think that's pretty good advice. But it's this harshness that we put upon ourselves, and that we tend to, the way that we beat ourselves up on Tuesday is exactly the same way that we beat ourselves up on Thursday, or this type of fractal. Burns even goes further, that he would argue about that we have this need to feel special, and as a result of that, it creates so much pressure, and he's actually arguing for lowering our standards to zero, so there's not such grandiosity or a demand, and then we turn around and beat ourselves up. We tend not to do that to other people, so there's this double standard that goes on, but we tend to be much harsher on ourselves. I remember Jordan Peterson talking recently, well, in one of his videos one time, or talking about his sessions that he goes to, and that he conducts, and people come up to him, and he's so surprised that people just need a little bit of encouragement, and that they don't have it. And what's surprising about that is, I think, this internal language, and why we concluded that being so harsh and such, maybe it's 80s, but these, I don't know, army type mentalities of, go, 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 but this harsh tone upon ourselves, believing that will make us perform better. From my experience, it hasn't. In some times it can become crippling. And these notions of compassion or self-compassion, or seeing the double standards, that we wouldn't talk to others that way, but dealing with the harsh tone that we've developed for whatever reason to believe that we could perform better with it. What are your thoughts on that?
You've touched on some deeply insightful concepts. The idea that harsh self-criticism doesn't enhance our performance but can actually hinder it is very significant. Many thinkers, like David Burns and Jordan Peterson, have highlighted how unrealistic standards and the pressure to feel special can lead to unnecessary stress and self-punishment. This harshness, as you mentioned, is often far more severe than how we would ever treat someone else. The shift towards self-compassion is crucial because it aligns more with how we naturally encourage and support others. Just as you observed, a little encouragement can go a long way, and many people are surprisingly starved for it. By applying the same kindness and understanding to ourselves that we would offer to others, we can alleviate much of the self-imposed pressure that comes from trying to meet unattainably high standards. This more compassionate approach can not only reduce our stress, but can also lead to more sustainable performance and well-being. It's about recognizing that being gentler with ourselves doesn't mean we're settling for less. Rather, it means we're fostering a healthier, more balanced way to achieve our goals. What do you think could be a first step towards integrating this kind of compassionate approach into your daily life?
Thank you. I think we might pause there, but I appreciate your time. So I think what really strikes me in this is just a reflection on AI's role in personal growth, on development. It occurs to me that, that we, especially if you're isolated and you don't have a lot of people to talk to, I think these sort of tools are the difference between, those minor zeros to ones, and people, lost in various places that can't connect. I think we are social creatures that we almost perform that function for each other. But if you don't have access to that, and people that are isolated, that it's not good for us. So I think the AI's role, I think, in the future of robots and understanding, allowing people to connect. Now, on the other side, we could quite easily ask that there's too many of us going into these virtual worlds that we may not come out, and all the dopamine hits are in these simulations rather than actually integrating and reacting with real human beings. Ready Player One talks about that experience. So I think these things as tools, not as those things using us. But I think also I welcome your comments and views around these things. Are these things going to be good for us? Are they going to add and enhance our lives? Are they good for personal growth, or are these things just spitting back to us the very thing that does it take us even further down the hole of just replaying and these silos, mental silos of just reinforcing the things that we believe in? I thought that it actually challenged a few beliefs, and I think it's interesting where this source of truth sits, isn't it? So, all of our institutions are breaking down where these notions of truth, and yet here it is that I'm speaking to an artificially intelligent thing, that there's no one behind it, but it's such a personal sense that seems to sit behind that. And it's quite striking. And here we are on GPT version 4, and as we tune these things and they get even better and even more personable, I think there's a real opportunity for this type of interaction for some that are unable to connect. And I think the future on, as we spoke about, cognitive errors, the nature of thoughts and feelings, and an educational component, almost personal coaching component, I think is compelling. I do imagine a future where people can learn to think in the same way that you would learn tennis coach to learn tennis. And in tennis coaching, the analogy is that this is constant feedback loop. It's miss, hit, good job. And I think in the same way that positive reinforcement, just like these things are taught themselves, positive reinforcement around thinking and how it's almost what it's doing. You know, a good conversation with someone is supportive, it's empathetic, can see your point of view. The whole Team CBT model shows that and sees people at the gates of hell. But I think as we get down the space of artificial intelligence, I think it's even more compelling that we can automate and scale some of these things and get it out to many people. I think is the true opportunity. So I wanted to share that with you. We'll do a lot of these. But yeah, let me know what you think. Chris out.